Welcome into Always the Jags, where we talk everything NFL, everything Duval, everything Jacksonville Jaguars. And guys, I don't know about you, but I'm a little depressed this week. Probably most Jaguars fans are after the absolutely horrid showing against the Texans at home, a game that we expected to win by like 20 points or so, and instead we got drubbed. And there's so many things that I just don't understand how it happened. Now, I'll preface this by I am not a football player. I'm just a fan. I don't understand how hard the game of football is. And the other team coming in is not thinking, hey, we're probably going to lose to these guys, or hey, maybe we should not give it our all because, the Jaguars are better than us on paper. No, I mean, a lot of these guys are rookies. They have no expectation on them. But when I say, like, a team deserves to get taken to task by the coach, this is one of those weeks because I'm a musician and I play saxophone. And there are times where I show up to rehearsal or show up to something and I'm absolutely playing terrible. And our band director lays us out. He lets us have it for good reason. We're not performing at the level we're expected to. And sometimes they got to have it, And so this is akin to like my worst performance or rehearsal as a saxophone player. This was atrocious, and I hope Doug Peterson lets him have it. I know we know Doug Peterson as a calm and collective coach, but I hope he loses his mind because that was ridiculous. That was just, there's no other words to describe it. I mean, I wasn't able to see the whole game. I saw like bits and pieces of it because, I was also thinking like, this is going to be a win. I thought it was going to be an easy win, honestly. Like, CJ Stroud is not going to be ready. Now, I'll give credit where credit's due. CJ Stroud is playing really well. But we made him look really good yesterday. Because, like, he was playing kind of well against the Ravens, kind of well in the next game against the Colts. But the Texans still lost by, like, 2 scores in each game. And against the Colts, Anthony, their starting quarterback, was out. They were playing against Gardner Minshew. And honestly, I don't think the drop-off from Richardson to Minshew is much, if any, honestly. I think Minshew might even be better than Richardson at this point, just because Richardson still needs to develop. But anyways, CJ Stroud, we made him look like Andrew Luck in his rookie year. Like, he's playing really well, and he's put his team in good position to score, but no rookie quarterback should look that good against a team that some had labeled as Super Bowl contenders. Now, maybe that was too far to go all the way to say that we were ready for the Super Bowl. And I didn't necessarily think we were Super Bowl contenders. I just thought we were bona fide playoff contenders. Playoff contenders do not lose by 20 points to a team that just picked number 2 overall in the draft. I don't care who you are. I don't care what team you are. Playoff contenders do not do that. Now, the Dallas Cowboys just went through the same thing when they got beat by Arizona. And that game even seemed a little bit more competitive than our game. And people aren't destroying the Cowboys the way that they're destroying the Jaguars because the Cowboys had 2 really dominant performances and then they just kind of didn't show up for this game in Arizona. Difference is the Jaguars had like 3 kind of bad performances in a row. Like, the game against the Colts felt listless, like our offense wasn't really clicking, and we just kind of got the win anyway. And it was like, oh, wow, even if things aren't clicking on all cylinders, we still have the talent to overrun inferior teams. And like that game was like cautionary, but it also felt really good because it was like, well, our offensive line is hurting. But again, it looks like we still have the talent to be able to overrun bad teams when we're having a bad day. That's what really good teams do. If they're having a bad day, their talent still surpasses that of the worst teams in the league. So, and then in week 2, we just kept making we didn't even make mistakes. We just didn't take advantage. The Chiefs made so many mistakes that we easily could have taken advantage and came out with a win. And we didn't do it. Couldn't get the ball in the right place in the end zone. There was at least 4 or 5 missed toe tap opportunities. And so that was kind of concerning. But again, the Chiefs were just won the Super Bowl. So, we don't have to, it doesn't mean that the Jaguars aren't playoff contenders by losing to them. But then the Texans come into our building and they drop 37 on us. We let a fullback run for a score. Fullback, 255 pounds. We made history yesterday because that is the heaviest player that has ever scored a punt return or kick return touchdown in NFL history. The heaviest player. And we allowed that to happen. Say, like, maybe it's a curse, like the Texans just some Indian burial ground, everything goes right for them whenever they visit Jaguar Stadium, and they always just win. I don't know. In the same way that the Colts haven't won at Everbank, no matter how bad of a team we've been, the Colts just don't win at Everbank. I don't know. It's just, even in that situation, it should be closer, you know? Like, this game is almost completely different if Calvin Ridley just catches that beautiful Trevor Lawrence touchdown. And I feel like, early in the season, there was some talk about Trevor Lawrence maybe making a push for MVP. I mean, that's kind of gone now because there's no way he's catching up to Tua, who kind of has an iron grip on it. But I feel like Trevor Lawrence isn't playing poorly. I think he's just not overcoming adversity as well as he did at the end of last season. Like, whenever he made a mistake or receiver made a mistake at the end of last season, he would come back out ready to go and keep firing because I think he was still trying to prove himself. You know what I mean? Or something like that. Like, the Ravens game, or the Cowboys game, was a really good example. He threw a bad interception. The game was almost over. It looked like we were going to lose because of that pick. And then the defense got us the ball back, and Trevor Lawrence went right back down and put us in position to tie it up with a field goal. Like, he overcame that adversity. And now it feels like if a play fails or something doesn't happen, it's like, oh well. I'm not saying like he's giving up on the play, but he doesn't have that same drive to like, just try to go for it again. I don't know. I can't explain it. It's just, he's not playing as well as he was towards the end of last season, and we all thought Calvin Ridley would up his game. I think the Jaguars have been kind of trying to run the offense through Ridley a little bit. Like, people have been saying that Trevor Lawrence is forcing the ball to Ridley, and it doesn't really seem like they're forcing it. Like, I don't think he's only locked in on Ridley, but I think what I'm starting to see now is that the scheme is designed to get Ridley open. I think Press Taylor wants Ridley to get open and become the focal point, and he's like fed the ball. And like the play is designed, like whenever offensive coordinators design plays, they'll have guys run routes in a way that sometimes will take coverage or something from this way that will allow a guy to open up. And they want that guy that opens up to be Calvin Ridley. Where in Doug Peterson's offense, it feels like Trevor Lawrence just found the open man. Whoever was open got the ball. Whoever was winning their one-on-one matchup got the ball. And it was spread around pretty evenly. I mean, Christian Kirk had 1,100. Zay Jones had 800. Evan Ingram had 700. I don't need Calvin Ridley to go for 1,400 yards. Calvin Ridley cannot top 1,000 yards. All the other players have close to that, and we will be a great team. That will be fine. Maybe that'll affect the contract negotiations. Whatever. The thing that's important is winning. And right now, our team wins because there's multiple skill position players that can all succeed. And like that might work if we had. I love Calvin Ridley. I think he's going to be really good for us. I think he just needs to get out of his own head and take off the expectations. And it's like that would work if we had like Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson or something like that. One of those players that just cannot be stopped, or Tyreek Hill. Where the entire scheme is evolved around getting them open. With Calvin Ridley, he's just a plus version of Marvin Jones. Like, he's much better than Marvin Jones, don't get me wrong, but we don't have to treat him like he's Devontae or Tyreek, because most of those other teams, or Jefferson, like the Vikings, all they have is Jefferson. That's pretty much their only outlet to go to. So yeah, the whole offense kind of revolves around him. We don't have to do that. We have good players. We have great players at every position. Slot, outside, Ridley, Ingram, tight end, running back, dump it off to Travis Etienne. Like, we have guys that can play complementary ball across our entire skill position. Across our entire skill position group. And so that's just what I see whenever I see our offense. It's like everything is schemed around get the ball in Ridley's hands. And it's like the thing should just be get the ball in the open guy's hands. Just get the ball in the open guy's hands because everyone's going to get open in this offense. And I don't know if that was kind of adjusted when the Jags came back in the second half, because when we came back in the second half of that Texans game and it was 17-10, I was nervous, but I was still breathing better because I was like, okay, 17-10, we're going to kick it off. We've made them go 3 and out before. We can stop them. Let's do this. And then that's when the fullback happened. And then it was like, okay. And then we drove down the field, got a touchdown to Kirk, and it was like kind of almost back in it. But it's like from that moment, it's like the football gods didn't want us to win or something. I don't it's like the Jaguars didn't want themselves to win. Because then we came on an all-out blitz and Tank Dell just waltzed in for the touchdown. And that's probably the worst part about this past Sunday. Like, our offense, yes, it should have steamrolled the Texans. Because new first-year head coach, their running defense hasn't been that great. They still don't really have a star on their defensive line, even though Will Anderson is probably going to become one. However, our offense should have played much, much better. However, the most disappointing part is that the Texans had 4 backup offensive linemen in, and we didn't touch him at all. When everybody was like, oh, wow, Josh Allen had 3 sacks against Richardson, it was like, well, were they really sacks, or did he just like chase him down and then Richardson went out of bounds? Like, in this game, 4 backup offensive linemen, and we barely touched him. We didn't get a single sack. I don't even know if we got a pressure. Maybe we got a couple of hurries. But he had all day, every single time. Like, we should have been able to rush 4 guys and just play coverage. And that's it. That would have shut them down because our 4 guys should have been able to win against 4 backup guys. Like, I love Josh Allen. I think I don't know what happened. I don't know why he doesn't have it or why he can't be more consistent with his pass rush ability. Like, he talks about I want to be the defensive player of the year. Yeah, the defensive player of the year has 5 sacks yesterday against that offensive line. You know what I mean? And Trayvon Walker, like, if that was Aiden Hutchinson, what did he have? 3.5? He has 3.5 sacks to start the season. And, I wasn't on the Walker hype train. I wasn't necessarily like, oh, we should definitely draft Hutchinson. Hutchinson to me just seemed like the smart choice. Let's just do it. That makes sense. And, I guess I could say I went along with it and hoped for the best when the Jaguars decided to go with Walker. That looks like a huge missed opportunity now. Because, again, as good as Walker may become, the fact is, even if one day he becomes better than Hutchinson, Walker's not helping us win games right now. His time for development, we're not going to be able to take advantage of his rookie contract. We're not going to be able to take advantage of Trevor's rookie contract because he's taking so long to develop. And like I said, if Hutchinson was in that game, we could have, even if we had traded for a veteran pass rusher like Zadarius Smith, who I was hyping for the entire offseason, go get him. He would have dominated against that line. And that would have opened things up for Allen and Walker. Or he could have taught them how to dominate. That's why we really needed to bring a guy like Calais Campbell back in. Because whatever Brenson Buckner, I'm sure he's a great defensive line coach, but whatever he's teaching them, whatever he's encouraging them to do, it's not working. It's not working. Josh Allen is not dominating like he should be. Trayvon Walker is not developing any moves. He is still just a one-trick pony that a backup 6th-string offensive lineman can feel comfortable beating him. He's the number 1 overall pick, and your 6th-string offensive lineman kept him in check. Not even in check, erased him. He was not a factor. And so that's the most and like the defense played well in the first 2 games. And this loss, 100%, is not on them at all. But we can't deny, like, what we have in the trenches is going to keep us from winning games the entire season if we don't do something. Because our offensive line is still struggling. Cam Robinson gets back for the Bills. Maybe that will help. We have some help coming there because then we can shift Walker a little inside, maybe help that out, keep hoping for Anton Harrison to develop. But in the meantime, we got to shift protections away from Anton Harrison because teams realize how green he is and they're just putting their best defensive player on him and he is losing every time. And we need to stop trying to generate the offense through Calvin Ridley and just generate it through Trevor Lawrence. Generating it through Trevor Lawrence means Trevor throws to the open guy. That's how that works. And so just let him find the open guy and do it instead of trying to, manufacture when Calvin, like even when they were playing a screen almost. I think there was a screenplay going to Ridley. And like Ridley's a great route runner, but he's not that fast. So like a screenplay to him doesn't make a whole lot of sense. He doesn't really get a chance to use his hands, and he's not that fast. His acceleration is not that incredible. So throwing a screenplay to him is just an excuse to get the ball in his hands. And like, yeah, he can be dangerous in the open field, but his thing has always been route running. He'll be in the right spot, and he's got sure hand. So let him get open by running his route and just throw him the ball. And if he's not open, someone else will be. That's the part that's killing me. Like someone else will be. And that seems like why our offense is stalling. And again, Trevor's not having a lot of time. And like I said, rolling the protection away, having him roll out to his left, away from Anton Harrison. The left side of our offensive line is the strongest. And again, maybe that makes us one-dimensional, but it at least keeps a guy from coming off that edge. It might simplify it for Anton Harrison a little bit until he gets better and more antiquated into the game. But hopefully before the trade deadline, the Jaguars will pick up some pass rush help. But I don't even know where it's coming from because all the best guys are gone. And to me, the guy that would have made the biggest difference for us is Zadarius Smith. Because then, again, he could have interchanged it out with Allen and Walker. Maybe he makes you move Walker inside, especially while Devon Hamilton is out right now. Like, we could have moved Walker inside, had him play Hamilton's role, and see how well he does. While Smith and Allen wreak havoc from the outside. Danielle Hunter was another guy to trade for. And I think Danielle Hunter has 5 sacks already. So, I mean, maybe if the Vikings lose this next game against the Panthers, maybe they'll be willing to sell off assets. I'd be willing to offer up probably a 4th for Hunter, maybe even a 3rd, because we need someone. And he's playing well right now. 4 or 5 sacks, he's one of the league leaders right now. So we can hope for better things against the Falcons in London as we go play them tomorrow. I just don't know. I expected so much from this Jaguars team, and it feels like we haven't gotten it. We're not too far up from our record prediction. It's just this game. Like, if it had just barely slipped away, score was like 23-20, would have been a little bit more understandable almost. But I mean, maybe this was just a bad day. I don't know. That's why it's so hard, because we had the advantage over the Texans in every single category. Now, with the Falcons, the recipe to beat them is very simple. Just do what the Lions did. Because the Lions made it very simple. Shut down the run. And that's it. Now, it's easier said than done because Bijan Robinson is definitely a beast. However, if our guys can hold up in one-on-one coverage against their receivers, and you stack the box, again, have Cisco playing deep, Rayshon Jenkins patrolling towards the middle, which is what he's best at, stack the box against them, Tyson Campbell's got to win one-on-one against Drake London, which I think will be a cool matchup to watch. Darius Williams is going to have to line up against whoever's out there. I don't know who we're going to use to cover Kyle Pitts. Maybe we'll have Cisco be the spy on him, or maybe have Rayshon Jenkins cover him. But, if you do that, you take away their weapons, the Falcons become very, very one-dimensional. Because they are one-dimensional. All they have is their run game. And once you stop that, that'll be it. As far as against the Falcons, their secondary's actually gotten a lot better. So they're probably going to take away the deep throw. Jesse Bates is waiting there to make interception. He's been playing really well this year. So I think just a little bit of patience, too, will really help against this Falcons team. Just take what's there, move down the field methodically. I mean, you don't want to go backwards, and picking up 1 yard on a play isn't enough, but just picking up 3, 5, 5, 10, 5, 6, 7, here and there. They don't have to be long passes. Trust the guy in the slot. I think Christian Kirk can have a big game. And that would be the recipe to defeat the Falcons. We're probably not going to have a lot of big plays because, again, their secondary is actually playing very well. So we'll see. This is probably a get-right game for us. Some people aren't saying that it's a must-win game. I think it definitely is, honestly. Like, if we have any hope of Because now we're not just fighting for a spot in the playoffs, we're fighting for a spot in the. Now we're not just fighting for a spot in the playoffs. We are just fighting for a spot in the playoffs because we're behind the Colts. The Colts are 2-1. And if we lose and the Colts win, now we're 2 games back. And the only path to the playoffs is by winning the division. There is no wild card here because the other teams are too good in this AFC. So we have to win the division in order to make the playoffs. And so that starts with beating the Falcons. And then if we lose to the Bills, again, I was kind of hoping we would beat the Bills. Maybe our record won't be as good as I thought. But we definitely need to win against the Falcons to get some good mojo back. Because if we lose against the Falcons and then we lose against the Bills next week, again, I don't necessarily think the Colts are going to turn into world beaters, but suddenly, instead of having a stranglehold on the division like we could have had, we're just fighting for breath and fighting to catch up. So, yep, today's podcast is a little sad. Hopefully things get better. Go Jaguars. And as always, it was always the Jags.